I started recording. Sorry for the delay.
Oh, sorry, no.
It's okay. Trustee Clayton,
Here.
trustee Dickon,
Here.
trustee Eastman, trustee Haber,
Here.
trustee Hollander,
Here.
trustee Jamerson,
Here.
President Ford.
Present. Next order of business is the approval of minutes. We have the August meeting, 2 sets of minutes. Can we talk about the first one, the August 3rd minutes first, please? Are there any changes or suggestions? Is there a motion to approve the August 3rd minutes?
So moved.
Second.
And I believe we need a roll call for this because we're virtual. Yes, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman, trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
The August 17th minutes. Are there any changes, additions, suggestions? Trustee Clayton?
I think it's page 14 in the packet, the very first paragraph. The last sentence says, Mr. Huvard explained Thornton's would be in Riverwoods by territorial rights. Is that a term of art?
Are you talking about page 14 of the packet?
Yes. I don't know what territorial rights means. I just
Oh.
wondered if that was a term of art.
Oh, okay. Attorney Huvard, can you?
Yes, I'm trying to find the reference to it. Maybe I'm in the wrong set of minutes.
The August 17 minutes have blue writing across them.
Right, page 14 of the,
Very.
oh, I see it. Could use a respect to Thorns and Oaks. I don't know what that's referring to. I mean, the sentence before is clear that we, is there something we could do to persuade the 37 acres to come into Riverwoods instead of Buffalo Grove? Without going back, the Thorntons is already in Riverwoods, so.
I think
Oh.
it might be in regard to the diesel part that would be on the 7 acres that's in Riverwoods, but isn't part of, that's the only thing I can think of, Bruce.
I would say you could delete the sentence and I don't think you would lose. I don't know what I could have said that would help persuade them other than maybe I was simply referring to the fact that, and I don't know if I did say this, but it occurs to me all the time that, since part of the 37-acre tract is already in Riverwoods, there is an advantage to the developer of coming into Riverwoods so that it can develop all of the site and not just the part that's currently unincorporated.
So we can either delete that sentence and you guys can approve them that way, or I can go back and review the video and correct it accordingly.
Is there a motion to approve these minutes with the deletion of that sentence?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? Okay. With no further discussion, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber, one more time, Mike. You're
still
muted.
Nay. Nay.
Trustee Hollander, trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to approval of bills. Discussion, please. Are there any questions, comments on the bills? Seeing none, may I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Deacon,
Aye.
trustee Eastland,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item of business, the Treasurer and Finance Committee report. Is there a report?
No, we're working on the October 5th meeting, so we'll have it all then.
Okay, are there any questions in the meantime for Trustee Clayton? Okay, the Director of Community Services isn't with us this evening. Can we move on to the consultants' reports? The attorney's report, please.
We didn't say anything at the outset about the continuation of virtual meetings. We do this based on the governor's disaster proclamation. Also, the mayor, I believe, finds that it's still not feasible for us to meet all in person, given the continuing spread of the Delta variant. Mayor, I'm speaking for you, but
Thank
You
you
agree
very
with-
much. I
you
appreciate
have
your
made that
comments.
determination. And if the disaster proclamation continues, then we'll see what happens on the 28th. Right now, I think it expires on the 18th unless something happened today that I missed. There are other things that are coming up on the agenda, and maybe we'll just wait for those. I don't have anything else.
Okay, if I can ask a question at this point, I think we're up in the air then about the format of our September 28th meeting.
Right. Well, if you're asking me.
Yeah, yes, please. Okay, well, we'll keep in touch with the board and either it's in person with masks in our boardroom, or if allowed, we'll continue the virtual. The engineers report, please.
The only non-agenda item I have is just to let the board know that we met this morning with HBK, the vendor that will be doing all of the water meter upgrades. We've got the first letter to go out to everyone finalized, and Chief Dano and I worked on sending out an e-blast to all of our water customers as well. So that project will get off the ground. We're targeting to start the actual installs the week of the 27th.
Trustee Jamerson.
Two questions. So the actual, they're not replacing the whole physical meter, just the electronic part on top?
Correct.
And then second question, they're going to give us software so the village can bill for these, obviously, right? Because it's different than what we're using now.
Actually, it'll use the same software, so it's seamless through what's called the Beacon software, whether it's coming through the current RF equipment or the new cellular equipment. The software doesn't change.
Okay, and this might be above your pay grade, Pat, but will we be able to have online bill payment, or is that a facility of our software in the village hall?
That's right. So it's Midwest Meter, Badger Meter. They provide the software for collecting the reads, and then it's a different piece of software that the village has for billing. So once we're up and running, you'll be able to get alerts on your phone. You can set the thresholds for usage levels and such. It should really cut down on the staff time spent responding to people when they are surprised by their bill. But the billing part of it is still a separate piece of software. Mayor Ford, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the village is considering making a change on that software as well.
I believe at this point, you can pay online with a credit card. If you're talking about an auto debit, that's entirely another matter. And at this point, I think we need to do a little bit more work.
Okay, well, I'll have to sit down with you in respect to that, because I've got a complaint from a resident about.
Yes, many of us have that same complaint. So we're trying to get a funnel and figure out who's on first here. And it's about late charges and so forth. So we'll get back to it.
Okay, thanks.
And then if I could just correct one thing that I said before, there will be a handful of customers who do get the entire meter replaced, because recall, we do have a few plastic meters out there that we're replacing.
Are there any other questions for the village engineer? Okay, the ecologist is not with us this evening. The Plan Commission report, please.
All right, the Plan Commission met on September the 2nd. We held a hearing to consider a text amendment to the zoning ordinance and an amendment to the special use ordinance to authorize a video gaming business as an approved use in the shops of Riverwoods. More than 25 people attended the Zoom meeting. The Plan Commission heard testimony from the applicants and took questions from the commissioners and from visitors. And the Plan Commission voted 4-0 to recommend denial of the video gaming application. The Plan Commission will send its report and recommendation to the board.
Thank you. Are there any questions or wish to have discussion?
Well, I think, if I may, when the
Yes,
report,
please.
when the report gets to the board, the applicant has requested the opportunity to appear before the board and, argue its case again. So I'm pretty sure we would have the report before the next board meeting on the 28th.
Mhm.
Is the board want to see the report and decide at what point would you want the applicant to prepare?
Trustee Haber?
I mean, the procedure is that regardless of what the Plan Commission votes, it comes before the board and the board has to consider it kind of de novo, right? So we can't just summarily say yes or no one way or the other. So I would think that we would want to see the full presentation again, and as well as seeing the Plan Commission report prior to the next meeting.
We can ask them to be ready for the 28th. If we can put that on the agenda, Mayor?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I think Trustee Hollander had his hand up as well as Trustee
I agree.
James.
I agree. I think we need to see the report before we, when we're ready to hear from the applicant.
Okay, and Trustee Jamerson, did you wish to comment?
I just agree with both of them. So I think we should see the report first.
Okay, all right. Then we'll be looking forward to the Plan Commission report prior to the 28th, and we should expect to hear a presentation from the applicants at the meeting on the 28th. Is that correct?
Is it going to be that, I would hope, Bruce, when you talk to them, that maybe you can tell them to direct their presentation so that it's not the same thing we heard when they came before us, before they went to the Plan Commission, because I don't think we need to sit through that again. If they were at the Plan Commission meeting, then maybe they can address some of the concerns that came up at the Plan Commission meeting, so that we don't have to listen to all of their, why they want to move here, why they want a space here and the demographics and all that other stuff. We don't need to hear that again.
Right. I asked them to forward the PowerPoint presentation that they presented at the Plan Commission. And I can ask them to provide maybe any other materials in advance so that they're not duplicating what they already said. I can do that. I have two other quick matters that sort of fall under the Plan Commission.
Wait 1 second.
Trustee Hollander.
As long as you're going to be in communication with them, Bruce, I'm curious to know the makeup of the other strip malls that they're in now. One of the difficulties we're having is a changing look of our various commercial areas, and they're already in a few of them. And that was something I never got a good understanding. They're in a few places now. I'd like to know who they're in with. What do the other strip malls look like? What are their other businesses there? To see how that mix looks, if they're able to provide it.
They did provide the addresses, at least of one and maybe two locations where they currently operate. One was in Hoffman Estates. So I'll find out, I'll get the addresses to everyone, and I'm sure that they would say if you wanted to make a drive out there and take a look at it, that they would welcome, you know, they're open. So if you want to see them, we'll get that information to you.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for them. I was looking for everyone that's around them.
I'm sorry.
You know, what the other- I'm looking to see what the other businesses that are associated with them, to get
Okay,
an idea of flavor of what kind of malls they're in, because they want to move into ours, and that was what I'm looking for.
Would you
Got
be
it.
able to do that with MapQuest or something like
Maybe,
that, where you get
yeah.
a street view?
Possible.
Or you
Um,
could take a road trip.
you can
Just
take your luck at the games and contribute to the coffers of Hoffman Estates. I haven't had a chance to talk to Lori about this, but it sort of falls on what's coming next at the Plan Commission. And so I thought I would put it here since it's all related to Plan Commission agenda matters. We did meet with Lexington Homes last Friday. They presented a site plan, a conceptual site plan that very much looked or followed the conceptual site plan that Gaywald Hamilton had suggested as a workable plan for the site. They preserved the access road that the village had encouraged that would provide access back into the retail areas. And they showed us a few renderings. We decided that there should be some discussion at the board, I think, Mara, that before we send it, they would not be ready for the Plan Commission until probably December. They, of course, are under contract and in their due diligence period. I remember from the site plan, the conceptual site plan, it was, if I remember, 69 townhomes. They were a 3-story product.
At this point, Henry, did you send something to Daphne?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Trustee Haber?
I just think that we need to put on the record that we're talking about the Federal Life property, because we haven't indicated what property we're talking about.
Sorry,
Thank you.
sorry.
Thank you.
Now, this is, again, this is not to, you know, of course, to pull the board or to get anything decided in advance. The question is, this is a total rezoning of the site. It's not currently zoned for this at all. It would be a change basically in our comprehensive plan, which is something I'll talk about next. You know, it's just, I think the merit, when we talked about it, was maybe I jump in. I mean, the idea was that maybe the board should see this. It's a fairly substantial land use, you know,
I think,
change.
yeah, we talked about this as a point of information, and Trustee Hollander was involved in the conversation as well because of the land, he's the land use committee. So I think at the beginning of the meeting, we were talking about the fact that it didn't make it into the packet, just as a illustration. So if Daphne, if you've gotten something from Trustee Hollander, you have not, okay. We can send that on to the board at another point. But again, it's a point of information. This is Federal Life looks like they're moving forward, and again, won't be ready for any formal presentation to us. It's a point of information. Trustee Hollander, have I gotten that?
Yes, I was going to do a quick presentation when we give our committee reports, but we can certainly wait until everybody gets, or you can show the graphic at that time, which I am.
Okay.
Whatever
Trustee
works for you.
Clayton, did you want to step in for a
I just
moment?
had just a question. Was there any conversation about affordable housing?
Yes, yes.
Accessibility and affordable housing, yes. Trustee Jamerson?
I haven't had a chance to review the video from the Plan Commission meeting, but was there anything else on the agenda? I thought the vape shop and there were a couple of other things on there. I didn't, was anything else brought up at the Plan Commission?
The rest of the text amendment dealt with including a tobacco store as one of the uses, but also a video gaming store. The tobacco store is, you know, we can pick that up later. We've already determined it to be similar and compatible. I was just trying to clean up the ordinance a little bit. There was also a suggested modification about gasoline service stations. There has to be a text amendment to deal with this for the Thorntons eventually. And I had probably foolishly lumped it in with the same text amendment because we were having a hearing and I thought we'd get through with it, but a few people that came wanted to speak about a gasoline service station, so I just suggested that we defer anything about that. We have to provide another notice for Thorns anyway. When we do the notice for Thorns, we'll notice the whole thing will include that part of the amendment again. That was my suggestion, so.
Okay, thank you.
So I won't take any of Trustee Hollander's thunder, but one of the things that comes up when you have a change like what Lexington is proposing on the Federal Life parcel, or in our conversations where we did contact the developer of the distribution center, and we did indicate that we were still interested in pursuing them rather than having them go to Buffalo Grove. And in fact, they said, okay, well, we're still interested. They were going to meet yesterday and then maybe get back to us. I haven't heard about setting up another meeting with the village to kind of look into what they might need. As I was doing some preliminary research about what it would take to fast track anything to get that use approved in the village, and also looking at the Lexington's proposal, I think that one of the things that we have to do is an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Right now, the comprehensive plan doesn't show any of the kind of logistics use on the 37 acres, and probably doesn't capture what Lexington Homes is proposing on the Federal Life site. One of the ways to deal with that is for the board to have the Plan Commission consider a minor amendment, basically the comprehensive plan, updating those sections so that they anticipate those kinds of uses. I haven't had a chance to really talk about scheduling, but I wanted to bring it up now. I think it's something that the Plan Commission could start looking at even at our October meeting, maybe not acting on anything until even the November meeting, but at least it would be in process, because some of our other zoning actions should follow only after we've amended the comprehensive plan. So maybe Lori and I can talk about scheduling, but maybe at the September 28th meeting, we can bring up the question of referral to the Plan Commission for a minor amendment to the comprehensive plan.
Is there any questions or discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, is there anything else from our village attorney at this point?
So sorry, no,
Are you sure?
never.
Okay. ZBA did not meet. Police report, please.
The police activity is in the board packets. On September 7th, in the early morning hours, we had a large tree come down on Deerfield Road near Juneberry that I believe probably affected some of you. It broke several ComEd poles, knocking out power in the area. It also knocked out cable. We had to close the street until the late afternoon for repairs and tree removal. And just as we got the street open, we had a large storm hit us. Fortunately, we didn't get hit nearly as hard as some of our surrounding towns that had large power outages and trees blocking streets everywhere. We just had some branches down that the officers were able to move off the streets on their own. We didn't have to call in the tree service to do so. And that's all I have.
Are there, Trustee Jamerson?
Just a quick question, Bruce. I noticed on the activity report that DUIs are up considerably from last year, which isn't a surprise, but they're also up considerably from 2019. Is that something that you see in some of the other suburbs? I mean, have you talked to the other chiefs about that, or is it, is everybody seeing an increase in DUIs, or is it just us because we're so vigilant about it?
I can't tell you for certain what the other suburbs are doing, but we have a couple of officers that are very vigilant about it, that make most of our DUI arrests, and they've been very active. I couldn't tell you what the other suburbs are seeing off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the chief? Okay, thank you. Information items and comments from the president. What I have listed here is grant applications and administration. I think I might have made a note of that in some prior discussions. I did meet with a firm that does that, plus other kinds of services for municipalities. And recently, late in the day yesterday, got a proposal. So I'm not prepared to talk to you about specifics or to ask for approval, but it is a firm that would search, apply, and administer grants that might be useful to us. So we see a lot of emails and notices and so forth about money being available, and it's very tough to be vigilant over all of that unless you're in the business of doing so. So I intend to bring something to you, hopefully the next meeting, after the attorney has reviewed it, after we take a look at exactly what that might mean for our staffing and so forth. So are there any questions or comments that you wish to share with me about that? Okay, moving on to visitors wishing to address the board. We have some visitors. Does anybody want to address the board?
There are no emails.
And there are no emails. Okay, moving on to new business. The first item under new business is an ordinance establishing special service area number 35 on Clendenin Lane. I think this is where I ask for a motion for first reading and approval.
Waive first reading.
Waive first reading. Thank you.
I make a
approve.
motion that we waive first reading for an ordinance establishing the Village of Riverwood Special Service Area number 35 for road improvements benefiting certain properties on Clendenin Lane.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second. I also think there's a typo. I don't think benefiting has two T's, Bruce.
I know you always say that. And apparently the dictionary gives me two options. It's the strangest thing. But I know you've made this comment for 10 years. And I have ordinances that go both ways, and it's very funny. I just don't know what to tell you. You might
Live
be
with
right.
it. All right, we've got a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Bruce, I sent you an email. My records are showing it's a different number. Do you want me to go with my records?
I want your records to be correct because mine are so what number do you have for it?
210917.
Okay, so that would be for second reading and adoption. We need a motion for
need a
second reading
motion.
and adoption.
Yeah, we need a motion for second reading and adoption, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander
Aye.
and trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you. So that's approved as 210917.
Okay, next on the agenda is an ordinance providing for the issuance of $321,000 special service area number 22, special tax bond series 2021 of the Village of Riverwoods, Lake County, and the levy of a direct annual tax sufficient to pay the principal and interest on said bonds. Is there a first and second reading here?
Move that we waive first reading.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Roll call. Oh, trustee Jamerson?
I just have a quick question. And I guess I've been doing this for 10 years and this is the first time I've ever noticed. So I hope this isn't the case. It's the first time I've ever noticed the tax bonds and the certificate of authentication that's on here. Has that always been in there, Bruce, or am I?
It's
Okay, great.
Sometimes I manage to flip them on the back side and that doesn't look quite, it's maybe just appeared that way on the page.
Okay, yeah, and the investment and inducement letter, I don't think I've ever seen one of those.
Yeah,
No.
they're always an exhibit to our bond ordinances. The bank provides those to them because we don't provide a full disclosure package to the bank. This is called in the old days, I don't know what the new terminology was. It's called a big boy letter, meaning that the bank is well enough equipped. There must be a new term. I'm sorry, I don't know it, but that the bank is sophisticated and well enough equipped to evaluate the risk it's taking by buying the bonds.
Okay, sorry, everybody. I just
Oh,
don't.
interesting. Trustee Clayton. You're muted.
We skipped past the ordinance providing for the issue of $342,000 for special service area number 35, special tax bonds.
No,
Is that included in the other?
no, we're on item B, which is the special service area 22 bond.
The ordinance establishing SSA 35 establishes it and authorizes bonds, but that isn't the same as the bond ordinance. It's saying that the SSA itself was created with the idea that bonds could be issued, and that it still takes a bond ordinance to issue the bonds, but it pre-authorizes the bonds. Without that in the SSA ordinance, there are some SSAs that were formed without ever contemplating a bond. By the way, as we're moving ever closer to second reading and adoption, I just want to say, I think it's in the memo, I must have put in the board memo at some point, but the rate of interest on this bond issue, we're looking at
3%, 3.5%.
3.35%.
Yeah.
This is a 15. Wait, we're looking at what was the ordinance number you just read? It may be out of order here in the packet.
Well, the first one we just read was the ordinance establishing special service area 35.
No, and okay, and then what was the second one? That we just
Second
read?
is the bond ordinance for 22.
Right, and in the packet, I think the bond ordinance for 35 comes next instead of
Oh,
for 22.
I'm going according to the agenda.
I know, that's
Silly
why
me.
I'm having, it's a challenging moment for me.
It's fine as long as we get to where we need to go.
So in the packet, if you flip a little bit further back, you will find the bond ordinance for SSA 22. Because I wanted to point out that it's $321,000 is the bond amount. And that for SSA 22, the bonds are being issued for a longer term than usual at the request of the residents. These bonds will be 15 years plus 6 months of some carry, but basically it's a 15-year tax rate and interest rate. And that's why the interest rate on this bond ordinance is different from the other bond ordinance, which opted for a traditional 10-year maturity. So the difference was 3.1% on the 10-year to 3.35% on the 15-year. I just wanted to point that out because they are different. And then if you look at the payment schedules in the bond ordinances, one of them has 20 payments, the other has 30 payments.
Are there any questions, discussion? I think we've got a motion on the table for an ordinance providing for the issuance of bonds for special service area number 22 for a waiving first reading. I think that's still on the table. Okay, then let's do a roll call on that, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye,
Moving to second reading and approval.
so moved.
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
Trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Ordinance 210918.
Okay, moving on to what I have as item C on the agenda, which would be the ordinance providing for the issuance of bonds for special service area number 35. May I have a motion to waive first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Move for second reading and adoption.
Second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Ordinance 210919.
Okay, now for a change of pace. The next item on the agenda is the approval of a service agreement with MuniCode as provider of village website services. Trustee Dickon has done a lot of work on this, and you have a memo in your packet, and I'll ask if you would, how you'd like to do this. If you'd like Attorney Huvard to review the memo, and then Trustee Dickon, of course, will do the technical parts of the discussion. Or Trustee Dickon, would you like to present the memo and the findings, please?
You know what, I'll take this as a learning opportunity and I'll have Attorney Hubert do the presentation. I'll address any technical or background issues that I've come across. Thank you.
Thank goodness for that, because I don't really understand most of it. I do have one mistake in the memo. That was my signal contribution. It turns out that we don't need the more expensive meeting and agenda management service yet. It's optional, but the base package apparently provides enough of what we need to begin with. So I don't know, many of the board may, if you go to other village websites, of course, I spent a lot of my life there, you'll see all the codes from various villages. MuniCode is probably one of the largest in the country. They must have, they say on their own materials, they have like 4,000 governmental codes online. Village Riverwoods actually has our code online with one of their competitors, but I think MuniCode is very well known in the field. And it turns out that they also can help us manage our website. They understand what governments do. They're used to the types of materials that governmental bodies need to put on their websites, calendars, packets, agendas, things like that. And I'll let Trustee Dickon could talk all about what we can do to do this. But basically, we found someone that can, for $4,800, can transition us to a website where in the future, the hope is that our own village staff with a little bit of training will be able to easily get materials onto the website. Right now, the current website was designed with a WordPress platform. Apparently, you have to be pretty skillful and knowledgeable to work it. Going with a big provider like MuniCode is what the committee that studied this recommended. So I'll let someone else speak to that. Basically, I looked at the service agreement. The key points are that there's an upfront cost to implement the transition. I think we figure it's going to take till the end of the year, probably, to get all of that done. And then they have an annual hosting, maintenance, and customer support fee that's $2,100. If you ignore the $3,400, which I put in there by mistake, we don't need, the annual cost then is very modest to have this kind of support. When I looked at the agreement, the other good thing about it is that they don't really require you to lock in for a long period of time. It's cancelable on 60 days notice. They will agree, they said they would in their proposal, to keep the rates they charge us for annual hosting the same for years 2 and 3, and then after that, in years 4, it goes up by CPI. There was a little bit of a surprise that in the middle of while we were considering other companies, it turns out that one of the other large competitors to Municode announced it was acquiring Municode. That's the Civic Plus. But of course, the Municode people say everything that we do until the acquisition is completed is us. And then once they take over, they're going to honor our agreements. So that's about the most we can get from them. As long as we're not, as long as we can cancel it if we don't like it, and they would have to give us a good deal of notice. I think I put that in the service agreement before they could cancel us. This is what the committee recommended. So basically, it's a very simple service agreement that they gave us, about a 2-page form, which you'll see I edited slightly, and the proposal, which it references.
Trustee Jamerson.
So 2 questions. On the page that has so on page, I'm sorry, 18 of 20 of their presentation, which I think is page 119 in the packet, it's their payment schedule. So they have the standard payment schedule for year 1, and that says no long-term commitments required. But then underneath it says option B, 4-year interest-free payment schedule, and that says there's a 4-year commitment required, and that's guaranteed pricing. So I guess the question is, are we doing A or B? Because one is no long-term commitment, but it doesn't sound like that means they're going to keep their pricing. Or we do B, which does require a 4-year commitment where they're going to keep their pricing the same. That's the way I'm reading it. Is that correct?
I thought so too. We are assuming we're doing A. And if you look underneath one of the bullet points in A, even though it makes this big thing about guaranteeing pricing with option B, under A, the second bullet point says guaranteed pricing. Hosting and support fees will not increase for the first 3 years. So I think it turned out that option B turns out to be a kind of a finance option for communities that have trouble coming up with the transition fee and the cost.
Okay, and then I did look at the comparison between the different vendors. And I guess my question is, still has to do with billing the water service. And can we do that? Right now, I think we're sending paper statements. Can we do email if people request that? Is that part of this software, or is that part of, and I don't think it's part of the water meter software. That's what I heard earlier. So will this allow us to send people emailed bills
So
as opposed to paper?
I could speak to that. The package that we're currently are purchasing or will be purchasing, if the board approves this contract, does allow for us to generate bills. However, it's a whole separate portal for which we would need, it's one of those a la carte items that we would have to sign up for when the site is ready and when we are ready to make that commitment. It does sound easy, but there's quite a bit of setup that would need to take place, whereas the finance department, somebody would need to sit down and actually generate those invoices. So from a technical standpoint, the functionality is there, but it's one of those switches that you have to turn on. So it's one of those a la carte items that we would need to review as the board and approve. And if this is something that we would decide to move forward with, the functionality is certainly there to support that need.
Okay, 'cause I didn't see it in their additional items, so that's why I was asking. But I think that's going to be important. I think we're going to need that in the future if we want to keep our residents, especially as younger ones move into town. Everybody does everything via email. Nobody, and the post office is getting worse and worse. So, okay. Thank you.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, if we move forward with that, and I agree, I think that's a great idea. It certainly answers some of the questions we've all had with emails coming in this last week. We ought to figure out what the additional service cost would be to offset our providing this. I'm sure it's only a couple dollars per bill, but whoever does go ahead and look into this, I would like to have the cost of the village defrayed for providing this service.
So I actually have looked at it, into this issue, and we could probably have a separate discussion directly with you and with the mayor regarding this. But the functionality is there. Actually, the bill payment functionality is generally provided by a third-party contractor. There's multiple that I have compared, but I feel like it's a whole separate discussion that should not be part of this website agreement at this point.
Trustee Clayton.
I have a couple questions too. A tremendous amount of work went into the existing website from the standpoint of branding and formatting and layout and so on and so forth. Are we going to be able to retain a lot of that work, or are we starting over?
So the way Municode and many of its competitors work is there is a certain level of templates. And from those templates, we could choose the look that most closely replicates the look that we want to maintain or change it altogether if we don't like the current look. But it also allows for us to have seasonal changes or something that's relevant today where it's not just COVID, and things that we could pre-plug. So if it's, we know the 4th of July is coming, the look will change if we want. Or we could choose to stick with the existing imagery. In terms of branding and fonts and things like that, that's certainly something that will absolutely be carried over to the new website. So we're not starting from scratch in that department, but I have gone to great extent to review content of pretty much all existing pages. There's some conflicting information that I wanted to discuss with all of the trustees. So I will be sending out emails requesting meetings to sit down with all of you to discuss areas of expertise that are most closely related to your area.
I think that if I understood it correctly, Mike, we get to keep our font and colors and stuff, even though it's their template. They have a way, is that right? They have a way of importing that?
Absolutely.
Is that?
Trustee Haber.
I interrupted Trustee Clayton and he wasn't done, and I'm really sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I may be asking the same question as Trustee Haber's going to ask. We'll see. What about security of the website? Is there any comparison you can make to the system we're using now compared to the new one? Is it more secure? Is it about the same? Are there modules that we should have to make the website more secure?
So in terms of security, it all goes back to hosting. This is a highly secure website. I can't really comment whether it's more secure than the existing one. However, this company does specialize in municipalities. This is their bread and butter. And with them having supported over 4,000 municipality websites, there's certainly a high level of confidence in their ability to keep them secure. The hosting that they provide, so the hosting that's provided by Unicode is their private hosting. And right now, I believe we are contracting out through GoDaddy.com, which is also a very large secure provider.
Trustee Haber, was that your question?
No, it was a good one.
Yeah.
When I reviewed this, it looked to me like there was two options. One was standard design and one was custom design. And I think we were doing standard design, not custom design. So I think that kind of goes to Mike Clayton's question earlier. So while we are going to be able to pick colors and font, that's about it. Otherwise, we're actually plugging into their templates, correct?
That's correct. In terms of where the navigation bar is, it's going to be on the bottom, and they give a couple examples. If you scroll down through their examples of standard sizes versus standard sites versus custom sites, you'll see how different graphics look different. You could have 5 buttons across the board or 3 buttons, but that's kind of the template look that we're going with. And they show you how it looks on a mobile device along the side of that.
So my question is, I don't know how many pages we presently have on our.
Over 600.
Okay, so we're going to be able to have the same number of pages that we currently have on the template site.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Trustee Clayton.
Another question I had is, what specifically is the website CMS, Contact Management System, and what training is the staff going to get to use the content? If we're concerned that WordPress is too complicated for the staff to use, what kind of training and support is the staff going to get to use this content management system?
Yeah, so they do provide full training in terms of just the functionality alone. I'm not sure if you've ever worked with WordPress, but it does involve quite a bit of a skill in terms of sizing imagery and doing a lot of formatting prior to having content being uploaded to the website. The way this works, this Municode website works, it's a lot of drag and drop and a lot of checkboxes. So you're not formatting things prior to having them go live. You know, you have limitation. You can't just go in there and make everything green, bold, and italics. All of that is predefined. So I know that Katie was going through some challenges in terms of taking content and posting it and things being formatted really roughly. This would eliminate that. They do provide quite a bit of training. They have a few price items in there saying that if you go above ridiculous amount of hours of training, they will begin to charge us hourly. But in speaking with some companies that, and speaking with some municipalities that have used Municode, they all were very pleased with the training that was provided. And perhaps we should have Chief Dano speak to that, because he did call on a lot of those companies.
I was going to say, I think let's call on some of the other people who are members of the group. Chief, you want to go first, and then Clerk Paris will have you after that.
So I had been doing behind the scenes work with our current website, and I did
I
have.
think you're muted.
I know if I unmute, then.
Oh, then we do that. Oh,
I'm
sorry.
they can
Sorry,
hear me on
guys.
your speaker.
Okay.
So I did have the training when we went to this website on WordPress, and it was not fun. And there's things that if I were more versed in WordPress that I could probably do in 5 minutes that are taking me 45 minutes right now, because I have to figure it out. Sometimes I call, but usually I just figure it out, but it's not easy. Sizing documents or pictures can be very hard. I watched the demonstration on this, and they took us behind the scenes from Municode and showed us what their end users do. And I was like, just blown out of the water how easy it was compared to what I have been doing. And when I spoke to some of the other municipalities that are currently using this, they all commented how easy it is for them to put things on the website. And in the rare times they do have to make a call, they said that they get through right away. Somebody helps them immediately, and whatever they need help with, they get through it. And they said the training was great. So this should be a lot easier than what we're doing now.
Clerk Paris, do you want to have him make a comment?
Yeah, so I did a call with them too. They are most recommended by clerks and other municipalities also. And one of the things I found really impressive was they have training videos that we have access to for free that are really simple and informative. So before we even call them for help, we have the opportunity to, you know, a how-to video that we can watch on our own.
Okay. Trustee Jamerson?
So I'm not sure if this is in the same discussion or not, but have we given any thought to changing our, I know we just changed it, but our email address, villageofriverwoods.com, is very, very cumbersome for anyone. If you ever go to a meeting and you have to write it down, it's like, takes forever. I don't know if this is the time to change it or we shouldn't change it, but if it's something that can be done without too much difficulty, I'd love to see if we could shorten that up somehow. I mean, we could get a .gov address or something a little easier to deal with.
Yeah, we actually had brief discussions regarding having a .gov extension, and this might be something that's worth rolling out when the new website is launched. I'll prepare a memo for the mayor and the board to review probably in the next few board meetings. We could certainly look at alternatives that would shorten the URL and then route us to the long one. But that would involve purchasing a whole new URL. So a little bit of money, but manageable.
Okay, thanks.
Trustee Clayton,
Would that entail then changing all of our stationery and business cards and all that stuff?
So at the end of the day, you would be able to use up everything that you have until you run out, and everything would be forwarded to the new URL if we were to implement the new URL. So at the back end, it would be seamless. You wouldn't see the difference. What would end up happening if we were to change the URL is somebody would send an email to Clayton at Village of Riverwoods or riverwoods.org or .gov, but you would be responding for, I'll take that back. Somebody would send an email to Clayton at villageofriverwoods.com, but then you would be responding from the .gov email address.
You know, besides shortening the name, Lilia had mentioned that the .gov address is safer and is an enhancement to cyber risk and everything. So that might, right? I think you were talking to us about that. So might be something, another reason to think about it.
maybe phase 2, right?
Or we time it when the new website goes live. It perhaps could be appropriate in a few months.
When we changed from -il.net to the new URL, I think we had probably at the same time did that when we went to the website that we're on now. It was pretty simple, and Google worked with us and for our emails. I don't think there were any issues.
Yeah, the forwarding would work seamlessly. Nobody would know the difference.
Trustee Haber,
Would it be a good idea to at least reserve the name now, which is very inexpensive, so that at least somebody who may be listening to this doesn't buy it and decide that they want to sell it to us for thousands of dollars?
So I think you and I had exchanged a few emails maybe 2 months ago regarding the .gov extension. There's a little bit of procedures that we have to go through, where we have to apply to receive and be granted the .gov URL. So we can't just buy it. The government actually has to approve us as a municipality and grant it to us. So there's a little bit of paperwork. I have forwarded it to the mayor and our village attorney, but I think it may be time we revisit this conversation or whenever we get closer to launching.
there further discussion on the approval of the recommendation for Muni Code?
I move that we approve it.
Second.
Any further discussion? Questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Moving on to the approval of a contract for street maintenance with Schroeder Asphalt Services. Village Engineer Glenn, would you like to lead us through this discussion, please?
Certainly. So there's the recommendation that's in the packet. Of course, I revised it with at the 11th hour. So Katie was kind enough to send that out to everybody. But we opened bids for the road project that is SSA 22, SSA 35, Hoffman Lane resurfacing, and then just some various maintenance patching around the village. We opened those bids last Thursday. As we've observed all year, the market is very, very competitive still, particularly for paving work. So we got excellent bids. We had 6 responders. The low bid was from Schroeder Asphalt. We've worked with Schroeder before in Riverwoods. They are perfectly capable of doing the project. So we recommend that the board authorize a contract with Schroeder Asphalt Services based on their bid amount of $737,917.94. And then I did, if anybody didn't get it, does everybody have the letter that breaks it out per the village costs and the special service areas? The upshot, of course, being that the village is actually the smallest player in this contract. Hoffman Lane is a bit under $200,000, and SSA 35 is $264,000, and SSA 22 is $281,000.
Okay, trustee Haber. Unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to know whether or not the 192,533 is in the budget for this year. And will it come
Yes.
out of the MFT fund?
And trustee Clayton, maybe you want to jump in, but certainly Hoffman Lane was in this year's budget, and it is not MFT.
It is not MFT.
Correct.
Okay, trustee Hollander, I think I saw you next.
I have two questions. One, are we able to vote individually by SSA 2235 in the village streets, or is this be taken as a package? That's my first question.
You can only vote for it as a package because we can only award the contract. I mean, I suppose we have the ability with the contractor to say, we're going to award you 22, we're going to award you 35, we're going to award you the rest of the portion. So I suppose we could entertain different motions so that the, if you wanted to authorize the portion of the contract for SSA 35 as one motion, for 22 as another, and for Hoffman as a third, you could do that. Then we could, is that right, Pat? Because then we can instruct the contractor. We're obviously we're about to issue bonds for 22 and 35. The residents are, waiting for us to do the work. So
I guess my suggestion would be, if it's the board's will that we not resurface Hoffman Lane.
That wasn't the board's will. I just wanted the opportunity to vote on different components of the contract.
I want to know if that was possible, the way it was presented.
So I'm just saying, if our bid documents allowed us to, I mean, obviously their pricing to some extent, Henry, was probably predicated on the whole size of the
value.
project.
Let's let village, Pat, can you answer that? Is it an all or nothing with this contract?
Well, I mean, it's a question for Bruce as to how exactly the board approves the contract. We certainly, the owner always has the right to add or deduct work, and then depending on the magnitude of those adds and deducts, the contractor may have the right to come back and ask for adjusted unit pricing for the remaining work. So one risk, I suppose, if we do kind of that a la carte, we've never had an entire SSA drop out of the contract after the bid. So we have not encountered this particular situation. So I think just the risk is, and we can negotiate and try to work with the contractor, if we do drop a substantial chunk of the work out of the contract, does he have the right by the IDOT specifications to come back and increase his unit prices for the other work, which would then, of course, mean increased costs in SSA 22 and 35.
Which leads to my second question. When you spend a couple $100,000 on Hoffman, is that something which can be deferred for a year? Is this required at this time? How do you determine? I'm just thinking about, we've been through this in the last couple of years, the idea of spending, in this case, it's $200,000 to repave the road, public road. And I wanted to know, in our area deficit that we have now, is this something that needs to be done this year, or can it be deferred another year? I don't have an understanding of how necessary this is at this time.
I see there are two other trustees who are waiting to ask a question, but Pat, can you answer Henry's question first?
The answer, of course, is yes. There's going to come a point where a resurfacing becomes a reconstruction because we've let it go too long. Are we at that tipping point right now? I don't think so. If we have some sort of crazy, brutally cold winter, maybe, but it is not something that is critical for this year.
Okay, Trustee Jamerson, you were next.
Well, a couple of my questions have already been asked and answered, I think, but I did communicate with Mayor Ford and with Pat earlier in the week on this. And my question was, I believe that we talked about resurfacing Hoffman last year. I think what I remember is that we decided not to do that and preserve the funds for the much larger and much more expensive Saunders Road repaving, actually reconstruction. And so and I did go down Hoffman Lane today. And there are places where it does need to be patched. There's no question about that. But I just want to make sure that if the money's coming out of our general funds, which it sounds like it is, according to Pat, we're not going to use our MFT funds for this. I just want to make sure that we're spending $192,000 that we have to spend, to Henry's point, that we have to spend this year, as opposed to a smaller amount of money to patch the road in certain places, even if they're large patches. We certainly don't want to get to the point where the road is deteriorated, where we have to dig it up. And I believe, and Pat can correct me, because I've gone through this with our association, it gets to a point where you can pave over the existing pavement if it's in decent shape. If it's not in decent shape, then you have to mill it. And if once you mill it, if you find soft or bad spots, then you have to dig those up and start from scratch. And we certainly don't want to do that if we don't have to. So I just want to make sure that we're spending the money that we have to this year, as opposed to just doing it because it's in the cycle. I don't know, maybe Pat can tell us when the last time we repaved Hoffman was.
I could look that up, and perhaps while I'm doing that, I would, the other thing that we ought to keep in mind is it is a very competitive market right now. The prices that we got are really, they're prices that are, what we would have paid 6 or 7 years ago. I know I was mentioning this last year that, hey, some infrastructure bill might come along, and the last time the feds put a bunch of money into it, asphalt prices went through the roof. Of course, reasonable people can disagree about whether or not that infrastructure bill is going to get done, but I'm looking up
because it's not just Hoffman Lane that I'm concerned about. I mean, if we're just doing these public streets because it's the cycle that every 10 years or 12 years or 6 years or whatever it is, we repave them, I think we need to rethink that. Because I just think we need to be better stewards of the money that we have. I'm not saying we shouldn't fix public streets. We have a responsibility to make sure the public streets are passable and are in good shape. Because they're public streets. And so we do have to do that. I just want to make sure we're spending the money when we need to spend it.
Well, I did look it up. I apologize, but we overlaid Hoffman Lane in 2006.
Okay. Trustee Haber, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a couple. Well, first of all, why are we not able to use MFT funds for this portion of the work?
Historically, we have shied away from using MFT funds for these projects as we started to bring in more and more special service areas and include them in the same contract. Of course, the private streets don't meet any standard that IDOT would approve. And when you spend MFT funds on construction, not only does IDOT have to review and approve the plans, but you actually have to let it You posted on IDOT's letting bulletin as well. And it would be difficult, if not impossible, to get IDOT to approve the work that we do on the private streets, the SSA streets.
But could they approve the work on the public streets?
If we separated the contracts, we would have one contract for the village work, that would be MFT, and then a separate contract for the SSAs. And then both parties lose that economy of scale.
Even if it was going to go to the same contractor?
Correct.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
mean, if we bid them both at the same time, of course, a clever contractor would say, hey, this is more or less one contract. I can sharpen my pencil for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm thinking, is that a possibility? So, I mean, that's number one. The other thing is, I just want to correct, I think, just a misstatement that Trustee Hollander indicated. He said, before we go ahead and repave a private road, I think you meant a public road because it was Hoffman
I
Lane.
corrected myself.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I did.
Also, and when in the past, when we have talked about converting public roads to private roads, isn't the other concept, though, that you'd have to bring the road up to a certain standard regardless? So if Hoffman Lane presently is a public road and it's not up to those standards, and this would bring it up to the standard, you're not really spending anything that you wouldn't otherwise have to spend, even if you ultimately decided to turn the private road into a public road. Maybe Bruce, you can comment on that.
Well, I don't really, I know, I mean, if the idea was that you were going to bring streets up to a certain level before you privatize them, depending on when you did that, then, streets brought up to standards within the last couple of years don't have to have work done to them, if that's what you're saying.
Okay.
Excuse me a minute. I see somebody is trying to enter the waiting room. Okay,
I'll get the door.
okay, I'll go. Trustee Clayton, I think you had your hand up.
Well, I was just reacting to Trustee Haber's comment. I think that depends on what the standard is. If the standard is the same as the private roads in South Riverwoods, then the street is already above those standards in many respects, if we're going to privatize the road. So I think it depends on the standard. And second of all, I'm just fundamentally opposed to spending taxpayer money on roads that should be private. The rest of the village is subsidizing those specific residents, and I will never vote for a funding of a public road that should be private.
Trustee Jamerson.
Well, two comments. One, I think Trustee Haber, from my memory, has it backwards. I think it's, if you have a private road and you want to make it public, you have to bring it up to the public standards, not the other way. Regardless, to Trustee Clayton's comment, the explanation that I've been given several times about the public roads and the maintenance and all the stuff that we do to them is because we can use MFT funds for it. And it's really not coming out of the Village of Riverwoods taxpayers' pockets, which in this case is not true, because we're lumped it all into one contract and it's coming out of our general funds and not MFT funds. So to Trustee Haber's point, it really should have been broken out as two separate contracts to make it so that we could use IDOT money on it. The public-private road thing is a whole nother issue, and everybody knows my view on that. And I don't think this is the discussion for this particular motion, but I am concerned that we're using, taxpayer money for these public roads that should be private. And because everybody kept telling us that we're using MFT funds for this, so it's not coming out of the village's coffers, and it is. So I'm going to have to, and I know that we have two SSAs that are depending upon getting the roads paved this fall yet, and I think that's an unfortunate situation, and I hope that we can approve those two and really take a hard look at resurfacing Hoffman. I mean, I think that's a bad plan.
Trustee Clayton and then trustee Hollander.
Just reacting to Rick's comment, because you use MFT money to pay for a project doesn't mean that it doesn't come out of the village's coffers. There's an opportunity cost to using those funds. And if you have more projects, then it's eventually going to come out of the village's coffers anyway. So it's just a matter of timing. It's not, MFT is not free money. It's part of the overall financial health of the village.
Trustee Hollander.
And back to my first question, can we split this motion, this contract? And I don't want to put the two SAs at risk or at a significant increased cost, but I don't know if we ever got an answer to that.
Well, I'd like to try and answer that. I think that we can tell the contractor, based on the way the bid documents were prepared, as I understand it, that we want to proceed with SSA 22 and SSA 35. So if that's the case, we could entertain a motion to approve the contract to include SSA 22, another motion to include SSA 35, and another motion to include Hoffman Lane. If only the first two motions carry, then what Pat has said is we're going to delete almost, I don't know, a third of the contract, or not quite, no, not even, 200,000 out of 700 something thousand. Will that affect the pricing? I don't know. I think I think contractually the contractor would have the ability to say, I have to rethink about my prices. Now,
There's a very specific formula in the IDOT specifications. It's a certain percentage of pay items that make up a certain percentage of the whole contract.
and I would like to make a suggestion, which is not going to be a popular one. This is one where I feel like we staff maybe we kind of didn't think all of this through. All along, I was focused on these contracts for the SSAs being done, and I didn't pay any attention to whatever the cycle was of what was coming next. If there's probably, I don't know, I'm trying to count votes, but I think it would be difficult if we went back to the contractor, he changed prices. That means either our contingency in the contract's enough to cover it, or we're going to have a thin contingency, or we're going to have to reprice the bonds. We're going to have to redo the bond documents. It's a big, and it's September 14th. Where we are is we're trying to get a contractor to mobilize immediately and get these two streets done before the weather. So it puts you in a difficult situation. I guess, in the future, the direction might be, don't include any street that the board thinks should be, or at least some of the people on the board think should be a private street until you've made that determination once and for all. Otherwise, every time we bring a contract for you, we have the same discussion, and that's difficult too. So we're kind of, if we had foreseen that it would be a divisive issue, we wouldn't have lumped them together. I think we missed that, and I'm sorry about that, because we weren't trying to force the issue. Habitually what we do is we try and lump projects together to get this economy of scale. So my suggestion is, don't treat this as precedent for everything that happens. I think whatever happens after now, we're going to know that the streets that have this issue, you're going to have some kind of policy decision, because there is a capital plan. All these streets are on a plan. They do come up every year for repair, and if we don't have a policy about what to do about them, the issue is going to come up again and again. But in the meantime, my preference for the sake of the SSAs is to award the contract, so that we can go forward with, the bonds, all the stuff that we've sort of put in motion. But, of course, it's your decision. And I'm just suggesting, if you want to vote in 3 parts, I see there's a way to do it. And if the outcome is we approve 2 of the 3 parts, that's what we'll tell the contractor and we'll see what it does.
Trustee Haber.
Yeah, so my comment is only that, and obviously a disclosure, I live on Hoffman Lane, as you know. But this issue has come before the board, and I don't know that this is the appropriate time to talk about it in specifics about private road versus public roads. But the board already went through this process on whether or not these private roads should be turned into public roads, and that was voted down. And so the current you can, as a board member, you can have a position that is, I would like private roads or public roads to become private roads. But as an obligation to the community, when there was a vote on that issue and that vote went down, and it was determined that these public roads would not be turned into private roads, and when the village engineer says that a particular public road needs to be repaved, I don't know of another time in the history of the village where we have not accepted the village engineer's opinion or position on the repaving of a road that the village engineer believes that public road needs to be paved. So until the issue comes up before the board a second time, and there's a determination as to whether or not public roads should become private roads, the law of Village of Riverwoods right now is that these are public roads, and the village engineer has said it needs to be repaired. So I believe whether it's Hoffman Lane or Portwine or any other public road, until there's a change in that law in the village, this is a public road. The village engineer says it needs to be repaved. It should be repaved.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, I agree. There's not time for that discussion. Pat, can you tell us whether or not, even if you patch Hoffman Lane, that you think this thing should be resurfaced, certainly within the next 2 years?
Yes, we did a significant patching on it last year.
Okay. I tend to agree that had my purpose in trying to separate it out was to decide whether or not we wanted to spend $200,000 on Hoffman Lane this year versus next year because of the financial situation. It had nothing to do with revisiting public and private roads. And at least that was my initial plan. I agree with Trustee Haber. This has been brought up. It was voted down. We have an obligation. And if the engineer feels that this is the time to do it, I think we're forced. However, I would like to have separate votes in the future, because I think MFT funding is a different way of providing for the funds than it is out of the general fund. And I understand that if we use it on this, the MFT funds might not be available for some other project, but we have the choice then of making that decision. So in the future, I would like to separate out the village-owned streets from others, although it could be in the same contract, so we get the economies of scale. I think that makes definite sense.
Trustee Jamerson.
I just want to clarify that I did not bring this up, and I did not contact the mayor or Pat because of a private public road issue. My concern was that it was not coming out of MFT funds. And if that's a mistake that staff made, shame on you guys. That is, we should be using MFT funds for what they're meant for. And we can't use them for a lot of things, and we're going to use them, now. And I'm very frustrated about this. I'm torn as to what we should do. I don't want to delay the SSAs, but I don't think we should be repaving any public street with municipal funds when we have MFT funds available. So I'm not sure how I'm going to vote. I'm not happy about the whole situation.
If I could, it is a fact that the state has until recently had not adjusted the MFT funding for decades, and even with the additional MFT allotments, putting aside the Rebuild Illinois that's being used on Saunders Road. For many, many years, it was very clear that MFT alone was not enough to cover the village's cost of maintaining the village streets. So we're still not in a position. Well, if we choose to let the streets deteriorate, to if we use the MFT funds as the only barometer for what road work we can do, we will see deterioration in the quality of the village streets. So it's, and I apologize profusely. I thought that Hoffman Lane had been vetted out through the budget process. It's certainly in perhaps some of the background spreadsheets that were used to build up that budget, but perhaps didn't come through to what the board finally saw. So that's on me. Bruce kindly calls it staff, but it's me. And again, if we determine not to award Hoffman Lane at this time, I will go back to the contractor, see if he's just willing to honor his current unit prices without negotiation. And we can go from there.
I move that we call the question on the approval of the engineer's request for the 2021 street maintenance project to Schroeder Asphalt in the amount of $737,917.94 as compartmentalized in his revised letter.
Now, procedurally, I think do we need a vote on the recall first, or the call to question?
He's moved the approval of the contract. If there's a second, then that is what's before the board.
Okay, is there a second? Trustee Dickon, did you second it? You're muted.
I'll second it.
As we go through discussion, I think it only fair that I let you know that I'm part of SSA 22 and don't feel that I can make a vote in the event that there's a tie. I feel I should recuse myself. So is there further discussion at this point? Okay, roll call.
Wait,
vote.
yeah.
Trustee Hollander.
Bruce, does this have to be done tonight, or can we find out from the contractor whether he will allow the SSA 22 and 35 to go forward at the same pricing if we take this up in the 28th? Are we squeezed with time on this thing?
That's really kind of a question for Pat, because that means we would delay
Oh, yeah.
closing on the bonds.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question. I'm sorry. According to what Pat says, that we get MFT funds and we blow through them so that we always are paying for something on the roads out of general funds. Is that correct?
That has been the case for at least 15 years.
So the only way that I see us getting out of this is that if as a village says that we have road funds and we'll spend it up to what we have, and then when we have some work that needs to be done and we don't have anything else in the road funds, it sort of gets deferred as much as we can. That to me is the only logical way of approaching the MFT. Either you buy whatever you can buy with whatever you have, and then you defer any other work, or you have to pay for it under general funds, which is what we've been doing for the last 15 years. Okay. I don't really have any other comments.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of the contract. Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
No,
trustee Dickon,
Sorry, I kept unmuting myself. Aye.
trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson. Rick, could you unmute yourself?
Sorry, nay.
Thank you.
So the motion carried.
Motion carried 4-2. Old business, please.
I don't know.
Okay, having none, committee reports. Start with legal and police. Trustee Haber, please.
Nothing.
Communications, trustee Dickon.
Yeah, the website has been a main item on my agenda, so reviewing existing content and speaking with multiple consultants to compare quotes and assess our needs. That's mostly what I've been working on, and as I said previously, I'll be getting in touch with many of you to review content and discuss what improvements we need to make the website going forward.
Okay, thank you. Building, utilities, and stormwater, trustee Jamerson.
The building report's not in the packet, but I'll just give you the highlights. Year-to-date construction is up slightly from last year in value. Permit fees are actually up about 50% from last year. They're not anywhere near where they were 2 years ago, but that's the story there. I did get a nastygram from a resident regarding their water billing. They evidently did not get the mailed bill, which is why I asked about it. And then they were assessed 3 months of 10% per month penalty without their knowledge, because we don't tell them that they got billed for the penalty until the next bill comes out 3 months later. So it's something we're going to have to rectify. I mean, we're either going to have to send out additional bills telling them that they're getting charged late fees, or only charge them a late fee, for once in the quarter. So I'm working with that. And that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. Woodlands and ecology, trustee Eastman.
Sure. So we received a proposal for the next 6 months of programming with Brushwood, and we're kind of assessing what's feasible to do with COVID restrictions, and the goal is to bring that before the board at the next meeting. The other item is the Trail Tales panels have been produced, and I think we basically got buy-off from all the people here, and then I'll forward that to them, and it's going to be about 21 days. So hopefully by mid to late October, they should finally have that installed. So been a bit of a process, but that should come to a conclusion soon. And that's it.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Comments? Okay, land use and roads, trustee Hollander.
I don't know if, Daphne, were you able to get the graphic put up? If not, I have it. I just, maybe easier from your end.
Share the screen with you.
So it's actually not in my email still.
All right. Then I'll see if we can't share the screen. See how we do this now. You may have to give me permission. Did that work, everyone?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Learn something new every day. Lexington Builders took the option on the property from Federal Life and came up with this plan. As you can see, there are 12 units. There are between 5 and 6 3-story townhomes, with the first story having an indoor garage for 2 cars and space for 2 cars outside. There's minimal public spaces. I think there's about a dozen of them. The total units are 69. We discussed with them the idea of having affordable housing. They are in contact with Lake County to see their definitions and what they can do. They understand that as a village, this is probably our last and best hope to be able to get affordable housing in the village. They were not strongly objecting to that. They were just going to see what they could, how they could make it work. No promises. We also discussed the idea of having accessibility with using an elevator during these buildings. A couple of their other projects, they were able to put elevators in. These are 3 stories and certainly would not be would consider it accessible without that. And they said that could be done and it could be made fully wheelchair accessible as the buyer wished. They would make those modifications. As you can see, there are two access roads. One is labeled, it's in the lower right-hand corner. It says 26 feet with FF below it. That's sort of a secondary access road for emergency vehicles and just to have a second road available to them. The major entry would be right above where it says Deerfield Road. That's the one that is prospective to be connected to the east of Colonial Court. They would put in the first 50%, obviously, to get to their buildings, which they would build and pay for. We've made no commitment to do the last 50%, and I don't think there's been any further discussion with the owners of the commons to on that road, but it would get us 50% of the way there. The plan was to have a trailer for pre-sale at the end of 22 with models in mid of 2023. They're aware of the construction with Lake County and have been interfacing with them significantly regarding the stormwater management and when they could do their construction. So I don't see any barrier with that. We asked about lighting. The lighting is only going to be at the intersections and minimal lighting. Most of their lighting is related to surface lighting on the garages itself, just on the walls, because that was an issue because of the homes to the north and to the east. Speaking of the homes to the east, we asked them about whether or not they would be interested in that property. It turns out that it has a lot of wetlands on it and is really not easily buildable. They didn't feel that it was going to give them any benefit. We had recommended that they go to the Plan Commission. Obviously, the board has to make that decision, but we wanted to present it to you to give you some idea of what it would look like. And if you had any specific instructions for the Plan Commission when they did hear it, this would give you an opportunity to take a look at it. Those white lines that look like, I don't know what they look like little bars, those are sidewalks, which took me a moment to figure that out. They're on the south side. We discussed with them the idea of putting a high berm or a lot of trees to block the sound and look from Deerfield Road, and they were certainly amenable to that. There's about 40 or 50 feet, although there's some common areas that they may not be able to build on, but they understood that that would be beneficial to both of them as well as us. And that's all I can tell you at the moment about it.
Any questions? Trustee Jamerson?
Just a quick question, and it's probably more for Pat than for Henry. Maybe Henry knows the answer. Would this be enough to get the county to approve a traffic signal at that intersection with Deerfield Road, where the road goes over to the shopping centers and goes south to Cube Smart or whatever they call it now?
I asked that question. The answer was yes, but Pat may want to chime in.
Pat's just going to be a little less optimistic or certain about it. It's going to depend, of course, on the results of the traffic study that takes into account this development, Cube Smart, Thornton. You know, we have a lot to bring together, and there's mathematics that have to happen. And then, of course, everybody should bear in mind that if this intersection warrants a signal, that's not something that the county would pay for. They would look for local participation in that cost and maintenance of that signal.
But it's in the TIF, right? So
Yeah.
we could use TIF funds for that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to scroll through and make sure that I don't miss. Are there any other trustees who have questions or comments on this at this point? Okay, Henry, can you quit sharing your screen, please?
Sure.
So I can,
Yeah, let's see here. How's that?
Great job.
oh, wow, I am
Yeah.
impressed. I'm impressed.
I feel
Were there
very
any
proud
other
of
questions for Henry? Are there any other comments on that? Okay, finance and economic development, trustee Clayton.
Well, we're busy working on the materials for the meeting on October 5th. We'll start out the meeting with a presentation by the auditors who have fundamentally completed, but not completely completed, the audit for last year. So it's kind of old news. But at this particular point, we're not going to have a final copy of the audit until 4 or 5 days before the meeting. So if you have any questions about that, we'll probably have to deal with it after the meeting, because I don't want to take up a lot of, I would prefer not to take up a lot of time in dialogue with the auditors
That's you.
going forward at the meeting, and then we can do it after the meeting. We're working on revenue replacement calculation for the ARPA grant, so we can decide how to best use the money. And we're in the middle of transitioning to the new accounting software. And we're also developing flow charts for the finance operations and to hopefully deal with some of the utility billing questions. And that's my report.
All right. Are there any questions for trustee Clayton? Any questions for those auditors? And I'm not muted on that either, am I? Okay, there being no reason to go into executive session that I'm aware of, are there any comments from the board on any other matters? Okay, the next date and time for the meeting is September 28th, but what form that will take, I think we're all just going to have to stay tuned. I don't have any clarity. I don't think our village attorney has any clarity at this point, so it will either be virtual or will be masked in person here in Village Hall. We'll try to prepare for both. Nothing else? May I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon,
Aye.
trustee Eastland,
Aye.
trustee Haber.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander,
aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. It was a tough meeting. Thank you. Thank you.
Night.
All right.
Good night. Be safe.